The fall of Earth. The skies over New York City churned with unnatural storms, flashes of sickly green light illuminating the panicked faces of those fleeing through the streets below. Captain Sarah Chen gripped the controls of her F-35 Lightning, the last of her squadron still airborne, as she banked hard to avoid another blast from the massive alien warship looming above the ruins of Midtown Manhattan. "This is Raptor 1 to any Allied forces," Sarah broadcast on all frequencies, her voice steady despite the chaos. "I repeat, any Earth Defense Forces still operational, please respond." Static crackled through her helmet speakers. Sarah's heart sank as the silence stretched on, broken only by the distant rumble of explosions and the whine of her jet's struggling engines. She was alone up here, Earth's last line of defense reduced to a single pilot in a badly outmatched fighter. The alien vessel, one of dozens that had appeared in orbit just days ago, fired again. Sarah rolled, the energy beam searing past her canopy, close enough to make her hair stand on end. She knew she couldn't keep this up much longer. Her ammunition was nearly spent, fuel reserves critically low. But giving up wasn't an option. Not while people still ran for their lives in the broken city below. Not while there was even the faintest hope of driving these invaders back. Sarah gritted her teeth and banked toward the towering alien ship. If this was to be her final flight, she'd make it count. "Come on, you bastards," she muttered, locking onto what she hoped was a vulnerable point on the vessel's hull. "Let's dance." Before she could fire, a blinding flash erupted from the warship's center. Sarah's instruments went haywire, alarms blaring as her jet tumbled out of control. The last thing she saw before blacking out was the New York skyline tilting crazily, flames engulfing her wings as she plummeted toward the ground. Dr. Elias Reeves hunched over his makeshift workstation, fingers flying across a salvaged keyboard as he analyzed the latest data from the field teams. The bunker around him hummed with activity, the last remnants of Earth's scientific community working frantically to find some way, anyway, to turn the tide against the alien invaders that had all but conquered the planet. "Anything promising, Doc?" a gruff voice asked from behind him. Elias turned to see General Marcus Wade, one of the few high-ranking military officials to survive the initial invasion. The older man's face was haggard, his uniform stained and torn, but his eyes still burned with determination. "Nothing concrete yet," Elias admitted, running a hand through his unkempt hair. "But we're making progress on decoding some of the alien transmissions. If we can crack their language, maybe we can." He was cut off by a commotion near the bunker's entrance. A group of soldiers burst in, supporting a battered figure between them. "We've got a live one of the soldiers shouted. "Fighter pilot, shot down over Manhattan." Elias and General Wade rushed over as the newcomer was laid on a nearby cot. To their surprise, the pilot pushed herself up, yanking off her damaged helmet to reveal a young woman with determination etched on her dirt-streaked face. "Captain Sarah Chen, sir," she said, locking eyes with General Wade. "Raptor Squadron. I think I'm all that's left." The general's expression softened slightly. "At ease, Captain. You're safe now. Welcome to what's left of Earth's resistance." As medics swarmed around Sarah to treat her injuries, Elias couldn't help but feel a spark of hope. If fighters like her were still out there, still willing to take on impossible odds, maybe humanity stood a chance after all. That spark was quickly doused as alarms began blaring throughout the bunker. Red emergency lights bathed everything in an ominous glow as panicked voices rose from the command center. "Multiple bogies incoming," someone shouted. "They've found us." General Wade's face hardened. "How?" "This facility is shielded off every grid." "Unknown, sir," a technician reported. "But they're moving fast. ETA 3 minutes." The general turned to address the room, his voice cutting through the chaos. "This is not a drill, people. Initiate Protocol Omega. All non-essential personnel to the escape tunnels. Research teams, grab what you can and move out. We are not letting those alien bastards get their hands on our work." As the bunker erupted into frenzied activity, Elias felt a hand on his shoulder. He turned to see Sarah Chen, her eyes blazing with a fierce intensity. "I can still fly," she said. "Get me to a bird, any bird. I'll buy you some time." Elias shook his head. "That's suicide, Captain. You barely survived your last encounter." Sarah's grip tightened. "And how long do you think any of us will survive if we keep running? This might be our last chance to strike back, to show them humanity won't go down without a fight." Before Elias could argue further, General Wade joined them. "She's right, Doctor. We need every second we can get to evacuate. Captain Chen, there's an old Cessna in the hangar. Not much, but it's fueled up and armed. Think you can handle it?" Sarah nodded sharply. "Just point me at the enemy, sir." As Sarah sprinted toward the hangar, Elias turned to the general. "This is madness. We can't keep sacrificing our best people on suicide missions." Wade's expression was grim. "Sometimes, Doctor, all we can do is buy time and hope it's enough. Now grab your research and move out." "That's an order." Elias wanted to protest further, but the ground shook with the first impacts of alien weaponry. He rushed to his workstation, shoving drives and notebooks into a battered backpack. As he ran for the escape tunnels, following the stream of fleeing personnel, his mind raced. There had to be a solution, some weakness they hadn't discovered yet. Humanity had come too far, achieved too much, to be wiped out by these invaders. They only needed time, a chance to regroup, and his thoughts were cut short as a massive explosion rocked the bunker. Dust and debris rained down as part of the ceiling collapsed. Elias stumbled, nearly falling before strong hands grabbed him and hauled him to his feet. "Keep moving," General Wade shouted, pushing Elias forward. "We can't let them take us alive." They sprinted through twisting corridors, the sounds of battle growing louder behind them. Elias's lungs burned, his legs threatening to give out. But terror and adrenaline kept him going. They rounded a corner to see the entrance to the escape tunnels just ahead. A blinding flash filled the hallway. Elias felt himself lifted off his feet, hurled through the air by an unseen force. He slammed into a wall, pain exploding through his body as darkness crowded the edges of his vision. The last thing he saw before losing consciousness was a towering, inhuman figure silhouetted against the fires of destruction. Earth had fallen, and the Galactic Empire's victory seemed complete. But unknown to both the conquerors and the conquered, the seeds of resistance had already been planted. In the ruins of defeat, a discovery waited to be made, one that would shake the foundations of the Empire and rewrite the destiny of humanity. As Elias Reeves slipped into unconsciousness, the future of Earth hung in the balance. The darkest hour had come, but with it, the potential for an impossible dawn. Discovery of the runestone. 6 months after the fall of Earth's last major resistance, Dr. Elias Reeves trudged through the ruins of what had once been Oslo, Norway. His clothes were ragged, his face gaunt from months of near starvation. But his eyes still held a spark of determination as he consulted the battered tablet in his hands. "We're close," he murmured to his companions. "The energy readings are getting stronger." Captain Sarah Chen, now sporting a nasty scar across her left cheek, nodded grimly. "Good. Let's hope your wild goose chase pays off, Doc. We're running out of places to hide." The third member of their group, a burly man named Marcus Kane, hefted his makeshift weapon, a fusion of human and scavenged alien tech. "Patrols have been increasing. Whatever's out here, the Empire wants it bad." They picked their way through the debris-strewn streets, always alert for the telltale hum of Imperial hovercrafts. The once proud city had been reduced to rubble in the early days of the invasion, its population either killed or shipped off to labor camps across the galaxy. Elias led them to the outskirts of the city, where the ruins gave way to overgrown parkland. In the distance, the remains of the Holman Collin ski jump stood as a broken monument to better days. There, Elias said, pointing to a hill partially obscured by dense foliage. "The signal's coming from underground." As they approached, Sarah held up a hand, signaling for silence. She cocked her head, listening intently. "Drone," she whispered. "Get down." The group flattened themselves against the ground as a sleek, silent Imperial scout drone zipped overhead. For several tense moments, they hardly dared to breathe. Finally, Sarah gave the all-clear. "That was too close," Marcus growled as they resumed their approach. "What's so important about this place, Doc?" Elias's eyes gleamed with excitement despite their near miss. "If my theories are correct, this site holds the key to fighting back against the Empire, something they fear." They reached the base of the hill, where Elias's scanner led them to a half-buried entrance. Centuries-old runes were carved into the stone archway, barely visible beneath layers of moss and lichen. "Some kind of ancient tomb?" Sarah asked, running her fingers over the worn symbols. Elias nodded. "A burial site for Viking chieftains, if the old records are accurate. But there's something else here, something that's been hidden for over 1,000 years." Marcus set to work clearing the entrance while Sarah kept watch. As the last of the debris was pushed aside, a cool draft wafted from the dark passageway, carrying the musty scent of long undisturbed earth. Elias activated the light on his tablet, illuminating rough-hewn stone steps descending into darkness. "Ladies first," he quipped nervously. Sarah rolled her eyes but took point, her scavenged energy pistol at the ready. The trio descended cautiously, their footsteps echoing in the eerie silence. The passage opened into a large chamber, its walls adorned with faded murals, depicting scenes of battle and conquest. At the center stood a stone altar, and upon it, "By all that's holy," Marcus breathed. A softly glowing stone tablet rested on the altar, covered in intricate runes that pulsed with an inner light. The air around it seemed to shimmer, as if reality itself was being warped by its presence. Elias approached reverently, his scanner forgotten as he gazed at the artifact. "The runestone of Odin," he whispered. "It's real." Sarah kept her weapon trained on the entrance. "Mind filling us in, Doc? What exactly are we looking at?" Elias carefully examined the runestone, not quite daring to touch it. According to legend, this stone was gifted to humanity by Odin himself, to be used in our darkest hour. It's said to have the power to summon a great defender, a force of nature to stand against any threat. Marcus scoffed. "You're saying this rock can call down the Norse gods? No offense, Doc, but that sounds like a fairy tale." "Maybe," Elias conceded. "But consider this. The Empire has gone to great lengths to destroy or confiscate anything related to Earth's mythologies. They fear these stories, these artifacts. What if there's a reason for that?" Before anyone could respond, the sound of engines filled the air above. Sarah's face paled. Imperial dropships, a lot of them. They must have tracked that drone signal. Elias's mind raced. They were out of options, out of time. With shaking hands, he reached for the runestone. "Doc, wait," Sarah shouted. "We don't know what that thing will do." But Elias's fingers had already brushed the glowing surface. The runes flared brilliantly, and a shock wave of energy knocked them all off their feet. The very air seemed to crackle with power as the runestone's light engulfed the chamber. Outside, Imperial troops were already fanning out, their weapons charged and ready. The commanding officer, a tall, gray-skinned being, directed his forces with cold efficiency. "Find the humans and the artifact. Kill anyone who resists." Suddenly, the ground began to tremble. Storm clouds gathered with unnatural speed, turning day to night in a matter of moments. Lightning arced between the roiling clouds, striking the earth with increasing frequency. The Imperial forces faltered, their usual disciplined ranks breaking as confusion and fear took hold. The commander barked orders, trying to regain control, when a blinding bolt of lightning struck the entrance to the burial mound. The explosion sent soldiers flying, and as the dust settled, A figure emerged from the smoking ruins. Tall, muscular, clad in gleaming armor with a billowing red cape. In one hand, he held an enormous hammer that crackled with electricity. His eyes glowed with barely contained power as he surveyed the scene before him. The Imperial commander raised his weapon, but before he could fire, the newcomer's voice boomed across the battlefield, shaking the very air with its force. "I am Thor, son of Odin, god of thunder, and I have come to liberate Midgard." With that, he raised his hammer to the sky. Lightning answered his call, arcing down to strike the Imperial forces. Dropships exploded, troops scattered in panic, and the once unstoppable army of the Galactic Empire got its first taste of true fear. Inside the burial chamber, Elias, Sarah, and Marcus picked themselves up, staring in awe at the destruction visible through the blasted entrance. "Doc," Sarah said slowly, her voice filled with a mixture of shock and newfound hope, "I think your fairy tale just came true." As Thor waded into battle, his hammer spinning with deadly precision, the trio of humans shared a look of stunned realization. The tide was about to turn. The Empire's reign of terror was over. The war for Earth's liberation had truly begun. Awakening the storm. The air crackled with ozone as Thor, the newly awakened god of thunder, tore through the ranks of Imperial soldiers. His hammer, Mjolnir, sang a song of destruction as it flew, each impact accompanied by a thunderous boom that shook the earth. Dr. Elias Reeves, Captain Sarah Chen, and Marcus Kane watched in awe from the ruined entrance of the burial chamber. The Imperial forces that had seemed so unstoppable mere moments ago, now scattered like leaves in a hurricane. "We should help him," Sarah said, raising her energy pistol. Marcus laughed, a sound none of them had heard in months. "Help him? Lady, I think the god has this under control." Indeed, Thor seemed to be everywhere at once. He called down lightning to fry the circuitry of Imperial dropships, sent soldiers flying with mighty swings of his hammer, and shrugged off energy blasts as if they were no more than mild annoyances. Elias clutched the runestone to his chest, its glow now faded but still warm to the touch. "This is incredible," he murmured. "All those myths, all those legends, they were real." As the last of the Imperial forces retreated or fell, Thor turned his attention to the humans. He strode towards them, his cape billowing dramatically despite the lack of wind. Up close, he was even more impressive. Easily 7 feet tall, with piercing blue eyes that seemed to crackle with the same energy as his lightning. "Mortals," Thor boomed, his voice carrying the weight of ages, "you have awakened me from my long slumber. For what purpose have you called upon the power of Asgard?" Sarah stepped forward, her military training kicking in as she addressed the god. "Our world is under attack, sir. A galactic empire has conquered Earth, and we're on the brink of extinction. We need your help." Thor's brow furrowed, his grip tightening on Mjolnir. "Midgard, Earth, has long been under my protection. Tell me of these invaders who dare threaten the realm of humans." As Elias launched into a brief explanation of the Galactic Empire's conquest, Marcus kept watch for any sign of reinforcements. But the area remained eerily quiet, save for the distant rumble of thunder. "And that's why we activated the runestone," Elias finished. "We're out of options. Without help, humanity is doomed." Thor was silent for a long moment, his gaze distant as if seeing far beyond the ruined landscape around them. When he spoke again, his voice was filled with resolve. "Long ago, my father Odin foresaw a time when Midgard would face a threat beyond its ability to counter. He left this runestone as a beacon, a way to call upon Asgard's strength in your darkest hour." Thor's eyes focused on each of them in turn. "You have proven yourselves worthy by awakening me. Now let us bring the fight to these invaders." A victorious cheer arose from the small group of humans, but their celebration was short-lived as the ground beneath their feet began to tremble. Guys," Marcus called out, pointing to the horizon. "I think the Empire just called in the big guns." A massive warship, easily the size of a small city, was descending through the atmosphere. Its hull bristled with weapon emplacements, and smaller craft swarmed around it like angry hornets. Thor's expression darkened. It seems our foes are not so easily cowed. Come, warriors of Midgard, let us show these invaders the true meaning of thunder. With a swing of his hammer, Thor launched himself into the sky, streaking towards the Imperial flagship like a bolt of lightning. Sarah, Elias, and Marcus scrambled to keep up, commandeering an abandoned Imperial transport. As they sped towards the escalating battle, Elias's mind raced. Even with Thor on our side, we're still vastly outnumbered and outgunned. We need a plan. Sarah piloted the craft with expert precision, weaving through debris and weapons fire. First things first, we need to rally whatever resistance is left. If word gets out that we have a literal god fighting for us, it could turn the tide. Marcus grunted in agreement. And we need to figure out how to take down that big bastard, he added, gesturing to the looming warship. Thor's good, but he can't be everywhere at once. Above them, the sky had turned into a maelstrom of lightning and explosions. Thor darted between enemy ships, his hammer leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. But for every vessel he destroyed, 2 more seemed to take its place. Suddenly, their transport rocked violently as a stray energy blast clipped its wing. Sarah fought for control as they spiraled towards the ground. "Hang on," she shouted, wrestling with the controls. They crashed hard, skidding across broken concrete before coming to a stop mere feet from the edge of a collapsed building. Dazed but alive, the trio stumbled from the wreckage. They had landed in what was once downtown Oslo, now a maze of rubble and twisted metal. The battle raged on overhead, but down here, an eerie quiet reigned. "Now what?" Marcus asked, nursing a bruised arm. Before anyone could answer, a voice called out from the shadows of a nearby ruin. "Pest, over here." They turned to see a figure waving urgently from a half-collapsed storefront. After a moment's hesitation, they rushed to join the stranger. As they ducked into the relative safety of the building, they found themselves face to face with a group of ragged but determined-looking humans. Their leader, a middle-aged woman with steely eyes, stepped forward. "I'm Ingrid Larson," she said. "Welcome to the Oslo Resistance." Elias's eyes widened. "There are more of you, we thought." Ingrid's smile was grim. "That we'd all been wiped out or captured. Not quite. We've been hiding, gathering strength, waiting for a chance to strike back." She glanced up at the battle raging in the sky. "Looks like that chance just arrived." Sarah quickly introduced their group and explained the situation with Thor. As she spoke, hope bloomed on the faces of the resistance fighters. "A Norse god, fighting for Earth," one of them whispered. "It's like something out of the old stories." Ingrid nodded, her expression thoughtful. "If we're going to make the most of this opportunity, we need to act fast. We have a hidden communications array that might be able to broadcast Thor's arrival to resistance cells around the world." "Perfect," Elias said. "But we also need a way to take down that warship. All the lightning in the world won't matter if they can just keep sending reinforcements." One of the resistance fighters, a young man with wild hair and grease-stained hands, spoke up. "I might have an idea about that. Been working on a little project, a virus that could theoretically hijack Imperial tech. If we could get it into their systems, we could turn their own ship against them." Sarah finished, a fierce grin spreading across her face. As the group huddled together, formulating their plan, the battle continued to rage overhead. Thor's lightning illuminated the ruins of Oslo, a beacon of hope in the darkness of occupation. For the first time in months, humanity dared to believe that victory might be possible. But the real test was yet to come. The Empire would not give up Earth without a fight, and the price of freedom would be paid in blood and thunder. With renewed determination, the expanded team of resistance fighters prepared to make their stand. The storm of revolution was gathering strength, and soon it would break upon the shores of a conquered world, washing away the chains of tyranny in a flood of righteous fury. The liberation of Earth had begun, and with it, the dawn of a new age for humanity and their divine ally. Thunder strikes back. The Oslo resistance bunker hummed with frantic activity. Dr. Elias Reeves hunched over a jury-rigged communications array, his fingers flying across salvaged keyboards as he worked to boost their signal strength. Nearby, Captain Sarah Chen pored over holographic maps of the city, planning their next move with Ingrid Larson, the resistance leader. Marcus Kane's booming voice cut through the chatter. "Eric's got something." All eyes turned to Eric Olson, the young tech genius of the resistance. He stood before a cobbled-together computer system, his face illuminated by flickering screens. "I've done it," Eric said, his voice trembling with excitement. "The virus is ready. If we can upload this to the Imperial flagship's main computer, we'll have control of their systems within minutes." A cheer went up from the assembled fighters, but Sarah's expression remained grim. "That's great work, Eric, but how do we get it up there?" As if in answer, a thunderous boom shook the bunker. Dust rained from the ceiling, and for a moment, everyone froze in terror. Had they been discovered? Then came a familiar voice, muffled but unmistakable. "Friends, are you in there?" Ingrid rushed to unseal the bunker's hidden entrance. As the heavy doors swung open, Thor ducked inside, his massive frame barely fitting through the opening. Despite the battle raging above, the god of thunder looked barely winded, though his armor bore new scorch marks. "The Empire's forces are numerous," Thor reported, "but they lack the heart of true warriors. We may yet prevail if we strike swiftly and decisively." Elias stepped forward, holding up a small data drive. "We have a way to cripple their flagship, but we need to get this virus into their main computer." Thor's eyes lit up with understanding. "Ah, a Trojan horse. A clever strategy. I shall deliver your weapon to the heart of the enemy vessel." "It's not that simple," Eric interjected, his earlier excitement giving way to nervousness as he addressed the Asgardian. "The virus needs to be uploaded directly into their central database. It'll take a few minutes to work, and someone needs to defend the access point while it does its job." Thor's brow furrowed. "I see. A task that requires both might and technological skill." He turned to Sarah. "Captain, you have proven yourself a capable warrior. Will you join me in this endeavor?" Sarah nodded without hesitation. "Just tell me where to point and shoot." As the group quickly briefed Thor and Sarah on the specifics of their plan, Elias finished his work on the communications array. "It's done," he announced. "Once we begin our assault, I can broadcast the news of Thor's arrival to resistance cells worldwide. If we time this right, we could spark a global uprising." Ingrid's eyes shone with fierce determination. "My people will coordinate with other nearby cells. We'll create a diversion, draw as many ground forces away from the flagship as we can, and I'll lead a team to take out their local communications hub," Marcus added. "Keep them from calling for reinforcements." Thor looked around the room, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Truly, the spirit of Midgard burns bright in all of you. Odin himself would be proud to fight alongside such valiant souls." With their roles assigned, the resistance fighters prepared for battle. Weapons were checked and rechecked, last-minute adjustments made to their plan. The air thrummed with nervous energy and cautious hope. As they made their way to the surface, Thor raised Mjolnir high. "For Midgard," he bellowed. "For Earth." The humans roared in response. The assault began with a literal bang as Thor summoned a massive lightning strike, taking out a cluster of Imperial dropships. In the chaos that followed, Ingrid's teams spread out through the city, engaging enemy patrols and drawing them away from the flagship hovering ominously above. Marcus and his squad moved with practiced stealth, making their way towards the Imperial communications hub. They encountered heavy resistance, but the element of surprise was on their side. Within minutes, the hub erupted in a series of explosions, cutting off the local Imperial forces from their off-world support. Meanwhile, Thor and Sarah fought their way towards the flagship, the god of thunder clearing a path through waves of enemy soldiers, while Sarah picked off stragglers and watched their backs. As they neared their target, Sarah couldn't help but marvel at Thor's raw power. He moved like a force of nature, unstoppable and awe-inspiring. "How are we getting up there?" Sarah shouted over the din of battle, gesturing to the flagship looming above them. Thor's grin was positively wicked. "We fly, of course." Before Sarah could protest, Thor wrapped an arm around her waist and began to spin Mjolnir rapidly. With a mighty leap, they were airborne, streaking towards the underbelly of the massive ship. They crashed through the hull in a shower of sparks and twisted metal. Alarms blared as they fought their way through corridors filled with panicked crew members and security drones. Sarah's energy pistol never stopped firing, while Thor's hammer carved a path of destruction through the ship's innards. "There," Sarah pointed to a heavily fortified door. "That has to be the central computer room." Thor nodded, hefting Mjolnir. "Stand back." With 3 mighty blows, the reinforced door crumpled like tissue paper. Inside, wide-eyed Imperial technicians scrambled to defend their stations, but they were no match for the determined pair. As Thor held off waves of security forces pouring in from adjoining corridors, Sarah made her way to the central console. Her hands flew over the alien controls, guided by Eric's crash course in Imperial computer systems. "Uploading the virus now," she called out. "Just need to keep them off us for a few minutes." Thor's laughter boomed through the chamber as he sent enemies flying with each swing of his hammer. "Only a few minutes. Why, we could hold this position for days." On the ground, Elias watched the battle unfold through a pair of battered binoculars. When he saw Thor and Sarah breach the flagship, he knew it was time. With a deep breath, he activated the broadcast system. "Attention, people of Earth," his voice rang out, carried by hijacked Imperial frequencies and boosted by their cobbled-together array. "This is Dr. Elias Reeves of the Oslo Resistance. I bring you a message of hope. The god of thunder, Thor himself, has awakened to fight by our side. At this very moment, he battles the Empire above our city." As he spoke, resistance cells across the globe sprang into action. From the ruins of New York to the underground bunkers of Tokyo, humans who had long lived in fear and hiding emerged to take up arms once more. Back on the flagship, Sarah's voice rose in triumph. "It's done. We have control." The ship's systems flickered, then came back online with a new purpose. Weapon emplacements that had been raining destruction on the city below now turned on other Imperial vessels. Shields protecting the invasion force from orbital bombardment lowered, leaving them exposed. As chaos engulfed the Imperial ranks, Thor raised Mjolnir one final time. Lightning unlike anything Earth had ever seen split the sky, arcing between enemy ships, overloading systems, and sending them crashing to the ground. The battle for Oslo, and for Earth, had reached its turning point. But even as victory seemed within reach, a new threat loomed on the horizon. The Empire's defeat here would not go unanswered, and the war for humanity's future was far from over. In the midst of the chaos, as humans and their divine ally celebrated their first real victory, none of them noticed a small, sleek craft slipping away from the besieged flagship. On board, the Imperial High Command's eyes gleamed with a mix of fear and determination. They had underestimated this backward planet and its protector, but they would not make the same mistake twice. As Oslo burned and cheers of liberation rose from the rubble, the stage was set for the final, decisive battle, one that would determine not just the fate of Earth, but the balance of power throughout the galaxy. A new dawn for the galaxy. The victory in Oslo sent shockwaves across the planet and beyond. As news of Thor's arrival and the successful uprising spread, resistance cells worldwide launched coordinated attacks against Imperial strongholds. The once mighty Galactic Empire found itself besieged on all fronts, its seemingly unassailable grip on Earth weakening by the hour. Dr. Elias Reeves stood in what remained of Oslo's central square, watching as humans and their Asgardian ally worked side by side to clear rubble and tend to the wounded. The air was thick with smoke, and the lingering scent of ozone. But for the first time in months, there was also hope. Captain Sarah Chen approached, her face smudged with soot, but her eyes bright with triumph. Reports are coming in from all over. New York, London, Beijing. They're all rising up. We might actually win this thing. Thor landed nearby with a thunderous impact, Mjolnir crackling with residual energy. The spirit of Midgard burns bright, he proclaimed. Your people have the heart of true warriors. Their moment of celebration was cut short as Ingrid Larson rushed towards them, her expression grave. We're picking up massive energy signatures in orbit, she reported. Looks like the Empire's bringing in reinforcements, a lot of them. Elias's heart sank. They had won a significant battle, but the war was far from over. How long do we have? Hours, maybe less, Ingrid replied. Thor's face hardened with resolve. Then we must prepare. The Empire will find that Midgard is not so easily conquered. As the group hurried to the Resistance's makeshift command center, the sky above began to darken. Not with storm clouds this time, but with the ominous shapes of Imperial warships entering the atmosphere. Inside the bunker, Eric Olson worked feverishly at his console. I've been analyzing the data we got from the flagship, he said without looking up. There's something big coming, like Planet Killer big. Marcus Kane swore under his breath. So much for our big victory. Not necessarily, Sarah interjected. We've got Thor, we've got control of their flagship, and we've got the element of surprise. There has to be a way to use all that. Elias nodded, his mind racing. Eric, can you get us a visual on that Planet Killer? A holographic display flickered to life, showing a massive vessel unlike anything they'd seen before. At its heart was what appeared to be a giant energy cannon, capable of reducing entire continents to ash. By Odin's beard, Thor muttered, such a weapon should not exist. Can we use the virus to disable it? Ingrid asked. Eric shook his head. No chance. After what we did to their flagship, they'll have isolated all critical systems. We'd need physical access to shut it down. A heavy silence fell over the room as the implications sank in. Then Sarah straightened, her jaw set with determination. So we give them a target they can't resist. Something so valuable, they have to take it out themselves. All eyes turned to Thor, who smiled grimly. I see your plan, Captain. The god of thunder would indeed make a tempting target. It's too risky, Elias protested. We can't lose you, Thor. You're the only thing giving us a fighting chance. Thor placed a hand on Elias's shoulder. Have faith. Good doctor. I have no intention of falling this day. But to save Midgard, we must be willing to risk everything. As the group fine-tuned their desperate plan, the first waves of the Imperial counterattack began. The skies above Earth's major cities lit up with energy weapons and explosions as the planet's defenders fought with renewed vigor. Thor took to the skies once more, this time making no effort to conceal his presence. Lightning arced between the clouds as he bellowed challenges to the Empire, drawing their attention and their firepower. On the ground, Sarah led a strike team towards the Imperial landing zones, determined to sabotage as many of their ships as possible before they could deploy. Elias and Eric worked to coordinate the global resistance, ensuring that every available resource was brought to bear against the invaders. As the battle raged, the massive Planet Killer ship slowly maneuvered into position. Its main cannon began to glow with ominous energy, preparing to fire a blast that would shatter continents. Thor saw his moment. With a roar that shook the heavens, he flew directly at the cannon. Imperial guns tracked his approach, pouring enough firepower to level a city into his path. But the god of thunder was undeterred, his hammer parting the storm of energy blasts like Moses parting the Red Sea. At the last possible second, Thor veered away. The Empire, so focused on destroying their most powerful adversary, realized too late that they had been duped. The Planet Killer's beam lanced out, missing Thor entirely, and striking their own flagship. The virus that Sarah and Eric had planted did its work. Instead of powering down, the flagship's systems overloaded. Cascading explosions ripped through its hull, the chain reaction spreading to nearby ships. In the chaos that followed, Earth's defenders pressed their advantage. Resistance fighters swarmed Imperial positions. Thor's lightning struck with unerring precision, and in orbit, hastily armed civilian ships harried the retreating invaders. As the last Imperial vessels fled the solar system, a cheer went up from every corner of the globe. Humanity had done the impossible. They had driven back the Galactic Empire. In Oslo's central square, now transformed into an impromptu victory celebration, Thor addressed the crowds. "People of Midgard," his voice boomed, "you have proven yourselves worthy 100 times over. The tales of your valor will be sung in the halls of Asgard for millennia to come." Elias, Sarah, and the other key members of the resistance stood nearby, battered and exhausted, filled with a sense of triumph they had not dared to hope for. "So what happens now?" Marcus asked. "The Empire's still out there. They could come back." Thor nodded gravely. "Indeed they could, but they will find a changed Earth waiting for them. A world united, armed with new knowledge and technologies, and under the protection of Asgard." Sarah's eyes widened. "You're staying." "For a time," Thor replied with a smile. "There is much to be done. Midgard must take its place among the stars, ready to defend itself and others who may fall victim to tyranny." As the celebration continued around them, Elias gazed up at the sky. The stars seemed brighter somehow, full of possibility rather than menace. Earth had been tested, had teetered on the brink of annihilation, but had emerged stronger for it. The Galactic Empire's defeat here would send ripples across the cosmos. Other subjugated worlds would hear of Earth's victory, of the god who fought alongside humans. A new age was dawning, not just for humanity, but for the entire galaxy. And as Thor raised Mjolnir to the heavens, calling down a triumphant bolt of lightning that lit up the Oslo night, Elias knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The people of Earth and their Asgardian ally, united in the cause of freedom. The storm had passed, and a new day was breaking. The Age of Heroes had begun.